Hello, everyone. Good morning. Yes, we are starting. Sorry, guys, that we are late. Internet connectivity. Your network is something else on our side. I hope you guys are well. Thanks for being patient, right? It's been a very hard morning. All right. Thank you for joining me in this new natural sciences journey. My name is Katlego Tibe, and I'll be standing in for your teacher, Koli. Yes, guys, so let us quiet down, come down, and get to our lesson. So I'm standing in for your teacher, Toli. My name is Katlego Matibe. All right, thank you. And I'll be presenting the Natural Sciences Grade 9 lesson to you guys. Remember, this is Term 1 recap, so I hope you guys will enjoy and will engage with me because this is revision. You did this in Term 1, so let us jog your memories. Right. So remember this in your first term. Cells are the basic unit of life. Do you remember that? If I can get a few yeses and nos. Do you remember the cell structure? Great stuff. So you remember the cell structure, the difference between the plant and animal cells. Skills focus for using a microscope and preparing a slide. Systems and human body, all 7 of our systems in the human body. Human reproduction, circulatory and respiratory system, and lastly, the digestive system. So you guys did that in term 1, right? And you still remember it. So I hope you guys remember that. So just to quickly check, because all of you are saying yes, what is the difference between a plant and an animal cell? Yeah, so much yeses. It shows that you guys remember. I appreciate that. Don't worry, it's okay. So just give me the difference between a plant and an animal cell to see if truly you guys remember the differences or you remember covering all of these in term 1. So what's the difference between a plant and an animal cell? So Cleo is saying a plant cell has a cell wall and an animal cell has no cell wall. That's awesome. That's correct. So plant cells have that cytoplasm and animal cells don't. So bugs, I'm not quite sure about that. I do not agree with you on that one, but I agree with Cleo. So Cleo is correct. A plant cell has a cell wall and an animal cell has no cell wall. So bugs, all or both of these cells, meaning the plant cell and the animal cell, have the cytoplasm. So the cytoplasm is present in both cells. Okay, I hope that you get that. So Amara says, yeah. Animal cells do not have a cell wall or chloroplasts, but plant cells do. Yes, animal cells do not have chloroplasts, but plant cells do. And animal cells are mostly round. They have an irregular shape, while plant cells have fixed or rectangular shapes, I meant. That's correct. So you guys got this. Oh yes, and a plant cell has a big vacuole, whereas an animal cell has small vacuoles. So a plant cell has a single or one big vacuole, whereas an animal cell has many small vacuoles. So you guys are on the right track. Thank you for those responses. Let us quickly see. Yeah, you got this. You guys are ready for the exam that you guys are going to write in a week or two. All right, so under cells, you know that the cell is the basic structural unit of life. And they are so small that they can only be seen under a microscope. And remember, anything that can be seen using a microscope is called microscopic. So you guys can tell from this term, microscopic. They simply took that term from microscope. They were lazy. So anything that can be seen using a microscope is called microscopic, meaning that it cannot be seen by our naked eye, and therefore we need a microscope to help us see it. Yeah, because I'm not familiar with all of you guys. I don't know if there are two bugs in the group. If so, that's awesome. So both plant and animal cells have the same basic structure. So all plant cells have the same basic structure and all animal cells have the same basic structure. What do we mean by that? All plant cells have one big vacuole, they have a cell wall, they have chloroplasts, and animal cells, they have an irregular shape, they do not have chloroplasts, they have centrioles or centrosomes. All right, so all or both plant and animal cells have the same basic structure. So remember, both plant and animal cells have a nucleus and a cytoplasm. So both of these cells have a nucleus and a cytoplasm. So let us look at the parts of structure of the cell or general parts of the cell. So what can you say about this? This cell has a vacuole, one large vacuole, cytoplasm. Remember, the cytoplasm is the liquid or substance surrounding the cell. So the substance inside the cell, that is the cytoplasm. And the membrane around the cell is called the cell membrane. So both plant and animal cells have a cell membrane. So yes, animal cells have a cell membrane and do not have a cell wall. Is it TIGS? I hope I pronounced it correctly. So animal cells have a cell membrane but do not have a cell wall. And plant cells only have, no. So plant cells only have a cell membrane and a cell wall. So you switch the two. You meant to say plant cells have a cell membrane and a cell wall, whereas animal cells only have a cell membrane. So animal cells do not contain chloroplasts and plants do. That's correct. So Tiggs, you confused the two. So just quickly check your textbook or your notes and correct that. So you guys can see the nucleus and the mitochondria. All right, so we are not strict at marking, but you guys should check your spelling, né? Like Unkabezi said, nucleus with the letter A, we will give you a mark, but I do not like condoning wrong spelling to students. So try by all means to write the correct answer. But just that you have a clue, I will give you a mark because you're on the right track. So guys, that's correct. Cytoplasm, the nucleus, the mitochondrion. So those are the basic structures of a cell. So both plant and animal cells have all of these structures that we see in this diagram. So both plant and animal cells have all of these cell organelles. So all the cell parts, we call them cell organelles. Like human body, we have organs. All right. So these are cell organelles. We also have these, but we do not have chloroplasts. All right. So what is the difference between mitochondrion and mitochondria? Onkabet is asking, and we have an answer from Benny. So mitochondria is the plural form, so that is many, and mitochondrion as a singular, which is one. Thank you, Benny, for the answers. So you now get it, Unkabeti. Perfect. Wow, this class is so awesome. So those are the general parts of both plant and animal cells, meaning that they appear in both the two cells. And then we're still continuing. The cell membrane forms the outer boundary of the cell, meaning that it surrounds the contents of the cell. And remember, we find the cell membrane in both the cells. And you know that the structural feature of this membrane, yes, Tix. Yo, Tix is forward, guys. It's like, I hope you are he. Within the nucleus, there is the nucleolus, the nuclear membrane, and the DNA material. That is everything that we find inside the nucleus. Thanks, Tiggs. So remember, the structural feature about the cell membrane is that it is selectively permeable. And by that, we mean that it controls which material or substance pass into or out of the cell. So remember this, the cell membrane is selectively permeable, meaning that it controls which material or substance get into or out of the cell. So not all substances or materials can pass through this membrane into or out of the cell. So if you didn't have it in your notes, you can write it down. And we continue. And then the cytoplasm. As I mentioned, it is a fluid or substance around the cell. So it is a jelly-like substance that fills the cells. So it consists of water with a complex collection of structures and materials that are dissolved or suspended in it. So we find all the other structures or parts of the cell inside of this substance because it's the liquid around the cell. So the cytoplasm provides a liquid medium of all the chemical reactions that take place inside the cell. So who can give me an idea of what chemical reactions take place inside the cell? Who has an idea? Photosynthesis. Thank you, Amaha. Photosynthesis because the plant cell has chloroplasts, and that is the site for photosynthesis. Another one? I don't know if you guys have covered this. Where does protein synthesis occur? I'm sorry if you can hear me. Let me repeat that. Where does protein synthesis occur? Can everybody else hear me? Am I audible? All right. So where does protein synthesis occur, or in which organelles? Right, so I typed it in, so I hope you guys can see that. All right, so you guys haven't covered that. It's not in the nucleus, so it occurs inside the cells. All right, thanks for Googling that for us, Amara. Amaha, so it occurs in the ribosomes. All right, that is fine. So if you guys didn't cover that, so even grade 10, you're going to take life sciences, you'll know more about that. Let me not confuse you. So that is also one of the chemical reactions that occurs in cells. So cells make proteins. You know proteins, right? From what we eat and stuff. So cells also make proteins. That is what we mean by protein synthesis. So the whole process where cells make proteins, it's protein synthesis. And you know that all living cells contain DNA? Ticks gave us that. That the nucleus has the nucleolus and contains DNA. So all living cells contain DNA. And in the simplest cells, such as bacteria, DNA occurs in the cytoplasm. Oh, so that is a typing error. Meant to say in the cytoplasm. So remember eukaryotes and prokaryotes. Eukaryotes and prokaryotes. So a bacteria is a prokaryote, meaning that it does not have the nucleus. Therefore, its DNA is found in the cytoplasm. And in plant and animal cells, DNA is contained in the nucleus because plants and animal cells, or plants and animals, are eukaryotes. Are you familiar with those terms? Let me write them down for you. Prokaryotes and eukaryotes. So a plant cell and an animal cell, those are eukaryotic cells, and bacterial cells are prokaryotic cells. They do not have a nucleus, and eukaryotes have a nucleus. So the nucleus is a round organelle surrounded by a nuclear membrane, and it contains the DNA. And remember, DNA in full is deoxyribonucleic acid. And this DNA contains the information inherited characteristics. So our genes, what we inherit from our parents, is found, all that information is found or is contained in the DNA. Any questions thus far, or should I continue? Yes, Benny, you may ask your question. Okay, it's not. It's not a question. It's all right. So Box is asking, what's the second last bracket? What do you mean by that? Where's the bracket here? What do you mean, Box? Anybody know what Box is? Oh, the second last bullet or the second last dot. Oh, so the nucleus has DNA. So DNA, remember DNA is an acronym and it stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. Are you fine, Bugs? So deoxyribonucleic acid, that is what DNA stands for. All right, so you are fine. That's great. And now under organelles, we know that organelles are quite large structures that are found in the cytoplasm of the cells. Sorry guys, I have flu, so I'm sneezing. So I had to mute myself. So organelles are quite large structures that are found in the cytoplasm of the cells. And some of these organelles are only found in plant cells. An example of organelles that we have the nucleus, that is an example of an organelle, the mitochondria, the vacuole, and the chloroplast. And those that are only found in plant cells are chloroplasts. What's wrong, Yoliswa? I've got flu, so I had to sneeze, if that's why you are sending out those question marks. And then this is your part now. Can you define these terms? Can you define the term cell, microscopic, DNA, and organelle? So I'm sorry, I've got flu, so I had to sneeze. So can you define these four terms? A cell, what is a cell? What do we mean by microscopic? What is a DNA? And what is an organelle? So Noku is giving us the answer for a cell. Oh, the cell is the smallest unit of all living organisms. So Nosipo and Amaha got that correct. The smallest structural and functional unit of an organism, which is typically microscopic. Now define microscopic because you guys are correct. That is the definition for a cell. Or you may say a tiny building block that make up all living things. That is correct, Onkabeti. Now what do we mean by microscopic? So microscopic is something that can be seen using a microscope. So small as to be visible only with a microscope, can be seen using a microscope. All right, so Noku microscopic is not an instrument, but it is anything that can be seen using a microscope, and a microscope is the instrument that uses a lens. You defined it. That is a microscope. All right. and give you guys are correct. So anything that cannot be seen with our naked eye but can be seen using a microscope. So what is a DNA? Deoxyribonucleic acid. It is the carrier of genetic information. That is correct. The material found in cells that carries the hereditary information. It is found in the nucleus. It has genetic information. That is correct, guys. And lastly, what is an organelle? What do I mean by an organelle? So an organelle are specialized structures found inside living cells. Any of a number of organized or specialized structures within a living cell. Thank you guys for those definitions. You are correct. And remember to have a terminology book for each of the sections that you guys cover. That way it makes studying much easier. So write down all the terminologies. That's what I mean. So thanks for all the responses and for participating. And because of time, we will continue from this slide tomorrow. So you guys should be able to identify, but we do not have all many slides left. So let's try to cover those. We have 5 minutes left. Oh, time is up. All right, so guys, you should be able to identify these cells, okay? There's a plant and an animal cell. So if I give you a plant cell, you should be able to identify a plant cell. And if I give you an animal cell, you guys should be able to identify an animal cell. Okay? So be able to identify those. I will give you homework shortly. And to test your memory, this is your homework. I hope you guys can see that. Are you guys able to see that? All right, so state whether the diagram of the cell in figure 8, so this diagram here shows an animal or a plant cell. That is number 1A. Okay? And number 1B, identify three structures, that support your previous answer. Number 1C, explain why these structures are necessary for this type of cell. All right, thank you, Yoliso. Please send it. So if you already did this activity at school, don't go through the work that you did. Answer it on your own again. All right. So you can try it again. So give the name and function of the structures labeled P to you in the diagram. So this is P, Q, R is this orange like liquid, R, S, that is this big thing here, T is this greenish organelle, and U, this purplish organelle. And number 3, draw a fully labeled diagram to show the general structure of the type that is not represented on this diagram here. Ooh. So if this is an animal cell, you draw a plant cell. So if this is a plant cell, you draw an animal cell. I'm sorry, I can't make the screen a bit wider. So let's zoom this image here and see if you guys can see. Is that better? All right, so state whether the diagram of the cell in figure B shows an animal or a plant cell. Number B, identify 3 structures that support your previous answer. And C, explain why these structures are necessary for this type of cell. Number 2, give the name and function of the structures labeled P to you in the diagram. So this is P, Q, R, S, T is the greenish organelle, and U, and draw a fully labeled. All right, so guys, you can share your contacts. So I see one of your classmates will share that. Oh, you're Lisa. Thank you for that. I appreciate your help. So guys, you have recapped. So you now remember that a cell is a basic structural unit of life, and cells are microscopic, meaning that they cannot be seen by our naked eyes. So they have a cell membrane, cytoplasm, a nucleus, and organelles. So those are general parts of a cell, of both plant and animal cells. So you now know the difference between animal cells and a plant cell. So for the next lesson, recap the systems. So cells in tissues, organs, and systems. All right. So these are some of the helpful links Goli used. So you guys are more than welcome to visit those. And guys, you don't want to miss the next lesson. So we will sum up the first term revision and go straight to chemistry, our second term work. So if you want to be a doctor, a pharmacist, a nurse, or an educator like us, join us in the next lesson. So I hope that will be insightful for you guys. So guys, you can add each other on that group and share the material. I like that you guys are sharing that. And for more information, you can contact or go to our website at Africa Teen Geeks. And you may follow us on all social media platforms at Africa Teen Geeks on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. All right. So those are some of the hashtags we use. And thank you guys for tuning in and being patient. Remember, we started late, but thank you guys for participating and for being a family. I like that. Stay safe, keep warm, wear a mask. Goodbye, guys. Have a lovely afternoon. All right, so V, you may ask your question because you raised your hand before we quickly leave the session.